Hello and welcome to the first episode of my Bloodborne Chronicles. If you're watching this, you're either someone who's interested in seeing another person play Bloodborne, or maybe you are on the fence and not sure whether to get the game and want to find out what's involved and what it's all about and whether you maybe want to jump on. Either that or I'm sat here recording this and spending this time doing it and no one's going to listen to it, which is probably more like it, but hey ho, here we go. Uh, These chronicles came about because I ummed and ahed about getting this game. I was really not sure whether it was something I wanted to do. I have a very poor history with the Souls games. I got Dark Souls a long time after the game came out, uh, and I just didn't get on with it. I just really couldn't get into it. I think part of the reason was that I left it so late and I missed out on all the exploring and the community spirit that these games seem to have, where everyone's on a journey and they're finding out what's happening and what this means and what that does and all the other sort of stuff that goes with a Souls game. And I missed that, and I think that's part of the reason why I just took the plunge with this game. I just felt like I really needed to experience it when everyone else is experiencing it. And so that's what I'm doing, and I thought that maybe what I could do along the way is record my thoughts, my feelings about the game, and sort of share them with you. So you start the game with the character creation screen, and first impressions weren't too good. They looked very much like the Dark Souls character creation. The graphic quality, the layout of the screen, the freaky thing where you create the character's face and you get the close up, and they just look lifeless. They've got these cold, dead eyes. Um, they just don't look alive. I mean, I know other games, Mass Effect, had a similar sort of thing, and thankfully, in this game, like Mass Effect, it wasn't an indication of sort of how the rest of the game looks. But initially, it was worrying, and it was baffling. All these stats mean nothing to me, so I just went with it. I took a flyer on it and went with this balanced build. I created my character, Rose. She comes from a village and she's the healer, and things haven't gone too well and people are getting sick, and so she is heading to Yarnum to go and meet the people who look after the fabled healing blood, and that's kind of how my story starts. So without further ado, I guess we get going and we dive into the adventure. Um, Hopefully you'll enjoy coming along the ride with me. Through the door in about an hour.
Now, let's begin the transfusion. Oh, don't you worry. Whatever happens, you may think it all a mere bad dream.
Okay, so I'm not really a big fan of horror games. I couldn't play Dead Space. The little babies freak me out. I get very scared. I couldn't even dream of playing something like PT. I'm not a big horror game fan. I am a pussy. But I've decided to play this game for some reason. So the opening scene, it took me aback a bit. I found this very creepy and had a very worrying feeling that I wasn't going to make it very far in this game. There is this creepy zombie werewolf thing crawling towards me, and at this point you have no control. So I guess you're going to be safe, but it didn't stop me shitting my pants. Being on a Twitch stream, as you can see in the corner, really did help, because oh, even the flame throwing whatever that was didn't really make me feel much better. But at least the horrible monster had gone, and I was safe. I'm just in a room with a pool of blood. Nothing to worry about now. I can look around and what the shitting hell is that? It's a weird zombie, creepy, fucking freaky thing crawling up my legs, and it's not getting any better, is it? I think I prefer the werewolf guy. At least you know you stand with a werewolf. Whereas what are these things? Are they my friends? Are they bad? They eat my face? They give me a kiss? I don't know. I don't know. But there you go. That's the opening credits. Now, this being a Souls game, you start off with nothing. You are in the world, in an unknown place. It's bleak, it's scary, you're on your own, and you have no weapons. You have no idea where you're going to be going. You are just there. It's an improvement over Dark Souls. At least I'm human. I feel like maybe I'm grounded in some sort of world. The fact in Dark Souls you were whatever you were in this kind of alternate purgatory hell place, and you weren't sure if you were human or whatever you were. I really didn't like that. It just felt so hopeless. At least with this, you look human. You can relate to it, but you have nothing. You've got a rain mac, some creepy zombie things come out the floors, give you messages, and nothing else. And it was terrifying. This bit I've sped it up because I took so long creeping through these little 2-3 rooms trying to work out where to go. I guess this was the way, and I came across this werewolfy zombie thing again, and I didn't know what to do, and I stood there and stared at it for ages. It was horrible. I had nothing to fight it with, so I ummed and ahed and looked around and just didn't know whether I was meant to be finding something and I missed it, or whether I was meant to literally try and punch this thing in the nose. But it appears that's what I was meant to do. So that's what you see in front of you. This fight, which didn't really go very well, but that is the way it was meant to play out by all accounts. Now, my biggest issue with the Souls game was how obtuse they could be, how incomprehensible everything was. All the mechanisms in the games, all the currencies, all the skill sets, all the stats, it was just deliberately obtuse. Everything was just seemed to be awkward for the sake of being awkward, and I guess because I left it so late to join the game and I missed all the chat and the forums and enthusiasm about everything, I just missed all that, and so I was baffled, constantly baffled, and checking wikis that were old and dead because it was 2 years ago since the game came out, and I just couldn't get on with it. And I think the biggest improvement in Bloodborne is how much more accessible it is. You've got a button you can press which shows you what the stats do, and don't get me wrong, there's still a bit to interpret in it, but you get an idea. You can scroll to every stat and it gives you an idea about what it does. The currencies seem much simpler. You get your blood echoes, which are essentially your souls, but they're for your leveling. You've got use them as well for things like leveling your weapons up, but that's your main currency. You've got blood gems you can go and find, which you can use like runes. We all know about runes. We're gamers, we're geeks, we know about these things. We can clip them on our weapons and they boost them. There's this thing called insight, which I don't quite know what it does at this stage, but it seems to do something. That's a bit vague, but that's the only thing. It's so much more intuitive and streamlined. The item descriptions are generally pretty good. There's some weird ones in there, strange coins I've found that shine the light and all this thing. You've got the vague things. You've got the typical Souls-esque situation with not quite knowing what is going on all the time, but it is much, much better for a virgin to these games, and it's made my transition into the game much, much easier. I found I'm not having to worry about anything other than just going through the game and killing things, and that is brilliant. That is pretty much all I could ask for. That said, there is some of the old Souls complication. It might look at the minute like I'm doing some sort of intricate mating dance, but what you're actually seeing on screen at the minute is me spending about 5 minutes, and I've shortened it, but trying to equip a bloody weapon. You'd think you would just go to the menu, navigate to the weapon and click equip, but no, you don't do that in Souls. It's a Souls game. It might be called something different, but no, they can't make it that simple. You have to bring another screen up, and that is a separate menu, and on that you have some blank slots, and you have to click a blank slot, and then it will allow you to pick a weapon that can go in that slot. Why they couldn't do it the other way, I don't know, but it's, as you can see coming up now on the screen, I go and pick one of those slots, I can select a weapon and it will work, but I tried for 5 minutes just to equip a weapon. Thankfully, that sort of level of obscurity seems to be a rarity, and once I got my weapon equipped, much to the amusement of the people watching me on Twitch, I was good to go, and I could go and fuck shit up. But it was a reminder that this is still a Souls game at heart, and there will still be mechanics that are there to confuse us or frustrate us or baffle us or just for someone's amusement. I don't know, but so far so good. And people who were put off by that in the Souls games, I can say you are safe with these. You can happily come in, pick your weapons, pick your stuff, sort your stats out, and go and kill some werewolves. I'm going to give you a little break from my voice and let you see the opening cinematic, which you get from the menu if you allow it to sit there for a while. Another little hidden gem, just so you can get a feel of what this game is all about from a thematic point of view, and then I'll talk some more at you. Enjoy! So as you can see from that cinematic, it's still a very bleak, dark and terrifying world, much like Dark Souls was, but it also feels grounded in reality, like the rules of the real world still apply, and that there is hope, as opposed to the total desperation that you got in the Souls game. You look at the styling, it looks like Victorian London. It feels like a place that we've been to, albeit, many hundreds of years in the future. But it looks like planet Earth, like the laws of gravity apply, like the laws of physics apply, like all those monsters and magic and whatever going on. You feel like at least you stand a chance of understanding what is going on around you, unlike the weird netherworld you're in the Souls game, where I just felt like I didn't have a clue, like I didn't belong there. And that for me is a massive, massive plus point. Certainly at these early stages of the game, I feel like I know what I should be doing. And with that confidence about my surroundings, about knowing what I should be doing, I find that I know where I am with combat. Combat in this game is so different to Dark Souls. I know people will say, and I'm sure I will probably find, that there are a lot of similarities, but for me it seems incredibly different. It's so much more fluid and so much more accessible than Dark Souls. Not having a shield, which is a huge thing, it gives you no option other than to be positive in combat. You have to take the fight to the enemy, no matter how terrifying they might be. The move set you have, it just feels natural, and it gives you the scope to take on enemies in different ways. And once you get to feel the basics of that, and once you get to grips with the basic of that, you feel badass. I've got a saw cleaver. It's a weapon I've never had anything like before. I can use it as a small little bloody blade, or at the flick of a wrist I can turn it to a huge swinging axe. It's a weapon I've never had anything like before, but it feels good. It feels natural. I feel like this. I was born to wield this and chop people's heads off with it. It's brilliant, and the flexibility of it, the long and the short range options that you get from having this switch up weapon is genius. It means you can take on enemies in so many different ways. You can get in close, you can be quick, or you can stay back and you can be cautious, and you can deal less damage but at a greater range where you're safer. You have options to do it, and you can switch it up mid fight. You have these combos that you can do, and you can do a small attack, and then mid attack you can switch it up to a bigger weapon and it does bonus damage, and then you've got a different move set. It just means that you can really get stuck in, and it feels more of an action game, and that is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yet with all that, it's a Souls game, as I've said many times before so far, and because of that you can easily be punished by the weakest of enemies. And at these early stages, if you take on more than one, you're in real trouble. So you have to make sure you're tactical and you kite them out, and you go in prepared, and every fight has to be taken seriously. But what that means is exploration in this game is very tense the whole way. You're creeping around areas, you're creeping up paths, you don't know what's around the corner, and you don't know if something's going to pounce out at you, and if you let your guard down. There's a sewer section later on in this first week where it was particularly terrifying. There was large numbers of giant crows, rats, undead, beastmen, all itching to strike you down. And there's such a scarcity of save points. You can end up accumulating a large number of souls along the travel. I keep calling them souls, but they're echoes, but we all know they're souls. But anyway, you get a large amount of them, and it means for every passing minute the tension is ramping up and ramping up until you realise you're squeezing the life out of the controller. But exploration is what this game's all about, and I found myself exploring every new path, hidden and obvious, resulting in me having every inch of Yarnum covered until at the end of the session, the end of the week, I only had 2 routes left to go down, both leading to a boss. The levels design is fantastic. It's a real honeycomb that can only be fully realised by heading off on tangents and opening many of the shortcuts like you just saw with the gate there, which enable you to do farming runs and quick runs to the boss, which are really important when you are banging your head up against the wall with on. And the joy in finding one of these hidden levers which opens a gate and drops a ladder and activates an elevator is genuinely uplifting after you have slogged through and minute by minute prayed that you don't die. And the thing with this game is exploration is always rewarded with items, armor, secrets, NPCs. Well, I say always, but it's not always. This guy, he's a big scary guy, and like nothing you face in the early stages, and I figured he must be hiding something really, really good. But he wasn't. There's absolutely nothing there. That's just a little trolling by the makers of this game.
Whatever can be gained from this place, it will do more harm than good. Pale blood, you say? Never heard of it. But if it's blood you're interested in, you should try the Healing Church. The church controls all knowledge on blood ministration and all varieties of blood. Across the valley to the east of Yarnham lies the town of the Healing Church, known as the Cathedral Ward. And deep within Cathedral Ward is the old Grand Cathedral, the birthplace of the Healing Church's special blood, or so they say. Yarnamites don't share much with outsiders. Normally they wouldn't let you near the place, but the hunt is on tonight.
And if you keep your eye out very carefully, you will see these little lamps by these windows, and you'll meet some of the very interestingly English NPCs in the windows who will say stuff to you, but it doesn't really seem to mean a lot. They are just in these windows and they're not coming out, and you're out there and they don't really care. But this guy, he was pretty friendly. He gave me some information, and I suspect that he may well help me later. But he just adds to the intrigue and the richness of the story, and the reason I explored Yarnham so much. But I couldn't put it off. I couldn't keep it off, and I had to go and take on one of the bosses. And that's exactly what I do next. So this is the first boss. I've put this in here mainly because this boss was what was shown in a lot of the preview videos, and I figure most of you would have seen it by now. And this is very reminiscent of one of the early bosses in Dark Souls, the Taurus demon, I think it is, which you face on a bridge. And I really struggled with it. I stayed back and I moved in and I got hit and I got hurt and I didn't really do it much damage, and I went through a hell of a lot of my blood vials, which are your health boosts, and I was nearly dead. I was nearly down and out. And then I figured I haven't really got much to lose now. I might have to try and switch it up, and switching it up made all the difference. I changed from being cautious, from staying back, and I moved in and I got right up in his face, right underneath him, and attack, 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 and it really turned the tide of the battle. I was able to stay in close, stay behind him, stay under his attack range, heal myself, and generally do a lot of damage without taking a lot. And as you can see from the video, I started to get his health down very quickly, and it was genuinely terrifying, but also very satisfying. I felt like I was in control. I felt like I could play this game, and I felt like I could do him. And do you know what? I did. I changed up tactics mid-fight. I thought about it, and it worked. And on my first attempt, I took down my first Bloodborne boss, which is way more than I can say for Dark Souls. So it's fair to say my first week with Bloodborne ended on a massive high. And the only slight downer to it was that I knew that the next thing I had to do was face another boss. And next week you will hear all about how I spent a lot of time facing another boss. I hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and if you have, please leave a comment and just let me know what you think, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much, and I will catch you next week.